This is the Chapter 6 practice test for geometry, starting on page 3 and ending on page 4. So numbers 18 through 21, the directions say, find the measurement indicated in each parallelogram. So 18 says find FG. So first you have to look at what's being labeled. The sides are being labeled and they're opposite. So if you look on your chart, you're going to see that opposite sides are congruent. So you put an equal sign between the two algebraic expressions, and then you solve for the variable x. Once you've solved for x, you plug it back in for side FG, and that side will be 14 units. 19 is the same way. They're opposite sides, they're congruent, so put an equal sign between them. Solve for your x, plug it back in, you should get 24. 20 and 21 have to do with their angles, and you have to really look and see, are the angles opposite or are the angles consecutive? So on 20, they're opposite each other, so they should be congruent. So put an equal sign in between them, solve for the variable x. I went to solve for angle Z and realized, that's not one of the ones I need. So I first needed to solve for angle, which one did I plug it back in? Sorry, W. So I plugged it in for W and got 56. Then to get Z, I had to subtract the 56 from 180. That told me it's 124, right? On 21, those two angles are consecutive. So instead of being congruent, they're actually supplementary. That means they're going to add up to 180 degrees. So I take both those expressions, add them together, set it equal to 180. Combine my like terms, and then do inverse operations till I get the variable by itself. So you subtract 12 from both sides, divide both sides by 21, and you get x equals 8. Then you realize they want you to solve for angle V. So you plug it back in for V, and you get 50 degrees. Number 22. The directions say solve for x, and the key piece of information is that they're telling you it's a parallelogram. So on your chart, you have a lot of information about parallelograms, so you need to see which one they're talking about. That's why it's very important to label your information. So if RP is 14, that's the whole diagonal. XP, half of it, is x minus 4. So if this piece is x minus 4, this is also x minus 4. So I need 2 of the x minus 4s, set it equal to the whole thing, 14. I distribute it over here, and then solved for my variable by adding 8 to both sides, dividing both sides by 2, so x should be equal to 11. 23, also important to label. You'll see that these two pieces are half. So I need 2 of the 13s, set it equal to the whole thing, and solve for my variable x by doing inverse operations. Down to 24 and 25. Find the length of the median of each trapezoid. So this is called the mid-segment. It joins the two midpoints of each of the two legs of that trapezoid. So that mid-segment is going to be equal to half of the two bases added together. So you just add the 23 and the 15 to get 38. Divided by 2 or multiply it by 1/2, you should get 19. 25 is the exact same way, except for they put decimals there. Add them together, divide by 2, you should get 7.9. Turn to page 4. Top of page 4. Same thing, but now we're going to throw in a little bit of algebra. So I changed the question mark to an x, and I set that mid-segment equal to half of the two bases added together. The inverse operation of multiplying by 1/2 is multiplying by 2. So I started by multiplying by 2, and that frees up my equation to not have any fractions in it. So you should have 26 equals x plus 8. Then the inverse operation is to subtract 8, and you should get 18. 27 is the same, it just involves decimals. So you set that mid-segment equal to half of the two bases added together. Multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of that fraction. Then you have a nice equation without a fraction. Subtract the 9.8 from both sides. 28 throws in even more algebra. So I set the mid-segment 8 equal to half of the two bases added together. Multiply both sides by 2. Over here you get 16. Over here on the right, it gets rid of the 1/2. I combined the 10 and the minus 3 to get 7. Subtract 7 from both sides, divide both sides by 9. You should get x equals 1. Then on number 29, same thing. Set the mid-segment equal to half of the two bases added together. Multiply both sides by 2. That's always a good step to get rid of the fractions first. Combine any like terms, and then do inverse operations until you get the variable by itself. All right, jumping down to 30. These two angles are consecutive, and consecutive angles on a trapezoid are supplementary. So you add the two together, set them equal to 180, combine your like terms, and then do inverse operations by subtracting 19, dividing by 23 until you get the variable by itself. On 30, those are base angles, so base angles are congruent. Make sure you know the difference between consecutive on the legs versus base angles, okay? These are going to be congruent, so put an equal sign between them, do inverse operations till you get the variable by itself, all right? On a trapezoid, number 32, opposite angles are going to be supplementary, so add them together, set them equal to 180. Inverse operations till you get the variable by itself. When you get to 33, you've got this information right here, so label it directly on your trapezoid. You're going to realize that they're giving you information about the diagonals, and the diagonals on an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. So you're going to set those two expressions equal to each other, do inverse operations till you get the variable by itself. Same thing for number 34, the last one. Label them carefully. You're going to realize they're the diagonals of an isosceles trapezoid, so you set them equal to each other and then do inverse operations until you get that variable by itself.